Hi. Despite the rumors that you may have heard, I do still use other synthesizers other than the Moog Matriarch. I have been really into the Matriarch heavy lately, as you've probably been able to tell from my recent videos, maybe partly in light of the unfortunate recent events of Dave Smith's passing. I've been getting back into my Pro 3 and have been really inspired to create some of the similar generative ambient stuff that I've been making on the Matriarch. It's over there, by the way, on the Pro 3. Now, one of the incredible things about the Pro 3, in my opinion, is it's almost like having a modular in a box. You have such a vast modulation matrix here, and there's so many things that you can route to other things. It's really kind of mind-blowing. So if you're looking to get into modular synthesis, but you don't want to put out a ton of money on modules and do all of the research that comes with getting into modular, this is a great place to start learning some of those techniques. Now, I just put out this video demonstrating some of the recent generative ambient patches that I've made with the Pro 3, and we're not going to be recreating those today, but instead I thought it would be more helpful to take you through the process that I use in making a patch like the ones that you will see in that video. So if you want to go back and watch that video at the end of this one, I'll include it in the end screen. First things first, we are going to go to one of these preset patches and initialize it. That's just going to give us a basic program, which is going to be kind of a blank canvas for us to start working with. Also going to put on my headphones so I can hear what's happening. Now, you may notice that even though we've initialized this patch, the sequencer is still set up to do this. And I don't want that. I kind of wish that it cleared out the sequencer when we did initialize the patch, but I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. So now we have a clean sequence. We're going to use this very powerful sequencer that is built into the Pro 3 to be kind of the driving force of our generative patch. First thing I'm going to do here is get all of our oscillators involved. And I'm going to set it into paraphonic mode. The Pro 3 has 3 oscillators, and it is paraphonic, so you can play each of them independently, kind of. They all, of course, share the same filter, the same VCA. If you want to see a video where I compare paraphonic and polyphonic synthesizers, you can click up there somewhere. I'm going to set these 3 oscillators to 3 different wave shapes and 3 different octaves so that you can hear that it's going to round robin through every time that I play a note. Anytime you're creating a generative patch, you want modulation sources that evolve over time and are being affected by other modulation sources, so you're modulating modulators over time. And there's a lot of different ways to do that with the Pro 3 and the mod matrix. Before we get there, I'm going to shift oscillator 3 into low frequency mode, and that's going to send us into 2-voice paraphonic mode. So now it's going to round robin between oscillators 1 and 2. Those will be our sound sources. Oscillator 3 is now going to become like a 4th LFO for us. And the really cool thing about that is oscillator 3 is a wavetable oscillator. And of course we can sweep through those wavetables. Or we can have an LFO or something do that shape mod for us. The cool thing is we can now use those wavetables as a modulation source. So just so that you can hear what that's doing, I'm going to go into our mod matrix, and for the source, we're going to have oscillator 3 affect, let's say, the pitch of, source, destination, there we go. The pitch of oscillator 1, and this is going to sound really terrible, but it's going to give you an idea of what's happening. Nothing is really happening because I haven't given it any attenuation at this point, so if I increase the amount, what we have here is this oscillator affecting the pitch of this oscillator. You can take it all the way down so it works more like an LFO. Different wave shape. Yeah, so that sounds pretty terrible, but how can we use that? Well, we can use that shape to affect other things that aren't the pitch. That's just the easiest way to demonstrate it. So what do you say we have that affect, rather than the pitch of oscillator 1, let's have that affect the filter cutoff. Bring down the amount, where it's a bit more subtle. All right, so we've got something interesting happen. I'm going back into paraphonic mode. I'm going to turn those two oscillators back up. Now that's all well and good. I'm going to go ahead and give us some release on our VCA. Increase the attack time. It's a bit too rhythmic for my taste, so for a patch like this anyway, I'm going to have something affect the pitch of this oscillator 3, which is basically going to affect the rate of modulation for this oscillator, which is then in turn going to affect how quickly it's modulating the filter. See how we're building layers, having modulators affect modulators. That's really the power of modular synthesis. So let's take LFO1 as our source, and I'm going to send that to, let's say, the coarse frequency of oscillator 3. You hear that? Now, I want this to start evolving and doing things on its own, right? So I'm going to set up a paraphonic sequence. I have two voices that I'm going to sequence. If we take the sequencer into paraphonic sequence mode, that's very important, because otherwise lanes 1, 2, and 3 affect the note and velocity, the duration, and the ratchet. However, when you're in paraphonic sequence mode, it becomes oscillator 1 pitch, oscillator 2 pitch, and oscillator 3 pitch. You have access to 3 separate lanes of pitch control, one for each oscillator. So with that in mind, I'm going to record something kind of basic. And the key to making this work is recording things that eventually I want to put into random so that they're stepping through in a random way on the sequencer. But the pitches always kind of work with each other, but create some surprising harmonies in spite of that. So you kind of have to play around, do some trial and error to find the right sequence for you. I'm going to select track 1, which is going to be the pitch of oscillator 1, and I'm just going to record in some Ds. How about that? The different velocity layers, you can see them going in as I play each step. Put an E in there. Okay, that's 9 steps. Gonna bring the speed right on down. Let's go to track 2, record in a sequence there. See how that sounds together. Now you'll notice that these sequences are of different lengths. This one is 9 steps. This one 12 steps. I can count. And that's going to allow for some natural evolution as this plays through, right? It's never going to do the same thing exactly twice, but if I go into random, I'm going to slow it down even more. Now let's get these wave shapes moving a little bit. I like to go square wave. And now I'm going to set LFO2 in the mod matrix. So I can go source, LFO2, destination shape mod of oscillator 1. I'm going to make LFO2 a sample and hold, which I can do like so. Bring the amount down, make that a bit more subtle as it goes through the pulse width. What if I affected that sample and hold LFO with LFO3? So I'm going to slow LFO3 down a little bit. Just have it sweeping through slowly. And for the source, I'm going to say LFO3, and for the destination, well, I guess I have to go in and dial that in over here. You can cycle through. Actually, probably can do frequency. Yep, LFO2 frequency. Kind of hate this sequence, so I'm going to do some other things. I'm changing my mind, as I've been known to do from time to time. I really love having 3 oscillators that I can all sequence independently. So I'm going to have oscillator 3. I'm going to take that out of low frequency mode. So now we can hear it's no longer quite as nice to have it modulating the filter cutoff. So I'm just going to take that out. And I'm going to program in a sequence. I need to take that out too. Yeah, changing my mind here, changing gears. Oscillator 3, I'm going to record. See what that sounds like. Yeah, I already like this better. Now I want to modulate that shape of that wavetable with something. Let's take LFO2. Shortcut LFO2 and have it modulate. I like that. It's a little bit too predictable for my taste, the way that LFO3 is modulating LFO2. So what can we do about that? Let's have something modulate LFO3, shall we? How about one of the envelopes? The auxiliary envelope over here, I'm going to make that loop, very slow loop. Make it loop over here. And now, I'm going to use that as my destination. Oops. Let's say, I'm not sure why that's not working. There we go. And I'm a little rusty on this synth. Too much matriarch time, I guess. And that is going to modulate LFO3 frequency. That's nice. If we run that through the ladder filter, it's going to distort. There's less headroom in this filter. But it can sound really nice when you drive it. You can bring it back a little bit. Obviously, if we go... And that kind of brings me to another point. People think of this synthesizer as being harsh and aggressive, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that if you increase the volume of the oscillators into the mixer, beyond 12 o'clock, they drive into the filter. That's before you even add any filter drive. So between that, the filter drive, the tuned feedback, and the distortion at the end, yeah, there's a lot of ways to distort and have kind of a grungier sound, but it's not really what we're going for today. So a little bit of crunch can be a nice thing through a nice reverb like the Skylar from GFI Systems, which is Going to give this some space when we get to the end. But I don't want to go too far with the distortion because that's been done a lot with this synthesizer. Rather than bringing in the noise or the funk, I just want to have that modulate something else. Modulating things with noise is a great technique. You've seen me do it on the matriarch if you've seen those videos. We can do it here too. So I'm going to use the noise as my source. I can send that to any number of things. How about the fine frequency of oscillator 2? So if I hear just oscillator 2, right, so you get that broken cassette tape kind of sound. Now if we were to modulate the coarse frequency, that would probably be a bit more obnoxious. Yeah, so you can overdo it rather quickly there. So now I'm using noise to modulate the shape mod of oscillator 1 just a bit. And I want to bring one of these oscillators in and out slowly and gradually, but at a different speed than I'm doing other things. So I have a second aux envelope that I can use for anything that I need. And this is also going to be a looping envelope. The sustain down, loop. There it is. And I'm going to make the destination. I can do this. Give it some release. Okay, now let's get this patch some stereo movement. One of my favorite ways to do that is with the sequencer, but because I'm using it in random mode, unfortunately, I have kind of two issues with this sequencer. One, we can't set the direction per track. So if we set it forward on track 1, it's going to be forward on all of the 16 lanes. It would be great to be able to have certain of the lanes be random and certain other of the lanes be forward or ping pong or whatever. We can't do that, unfortunately. Hopefully, please Sequential in a firmware, software update, that would be great. Another thing that would be amazing is if we could have different divisions of time per sequencer lane. That would be truly incredible and really open up this sequencer. They did include per track length, which is an amazing addition. I was really hoping for that, and they came through, so hopefully we'll get some other things. I realize it's a paraphonic synth, so you only have one VCA, and everything's kind of crammed through the same signal path, so I don't know how hard some of these things would be to implement, but I don't have to make things. I just have to sit around and say what they should do, so I'll leave that to the very wise people at Sequential. Okay, so getting back to creating some stereo width, let's use the random source in here. Let's see what that does. We can find panning, not on the front panel, but it is a destination. Now each time the sequencer fires, it's giving us a random thing. Okay, I lied. I do have one other kind of wish list item for this. I wish that we could modulate the BPM of the sequencer. That would be amazing. You can't do that, unfortunately. It's not a modulation source. I don't actually like the random for the panning. I'll leave it on just a bit, but I think I want source. Let's make it aux envelope 1. Give it some amount and take that to That's another tip I would say. Just pick a source and give it some amount, and then sweep through the destinations and see what kind of sounds cool. Kind of like that. That's the looping aux envelope 1, whoo-hoo, affecting all of the LFO's frequencies. And LFO1's default destination is all oscillators fine frequency, so that's why it kind of sends everything into oblivion. I want to have it just affect one of the oscillators. Maybe oscillator 2, I think that would sound good, kind of drunk. And then I'm gonna bring this amount way back so that it's much more subtle. All right, it's already pretty cool. Now, what else was I doing? Oh, before I got distracted, I was gonna set the pan to source envelope 1, bring it just a bit. Okay, now it's got some movement to it. Filter cutoff. I'd like to have this do something. I can actually, I'm gonna set this back to forward. I can record in some tiny filter movements. Then I can turn on slew and have that be less stepped and more gradual. You hear that? Go back to random. Okay, I think we're ready for some effects. Got a bucket brigade delay. And now I think we can have our noise oscillate effect 1's parameter 1. It should be delay time, and as we've learned from the matriarch again, modulating delay time with noise is really wonderful. Now we could stack yet another bucket brigade delay. Maybe a slower one. I could have something slow like maybe oscillator, or excuse me, LFO1. Affect the feedback. Mix down. That's lovely. Okay, I think we've gone just about long enough with no reverb on this ambient generative patch, because that is really going to set it over the top. Now, the spatium reverb in the Skylar pedal is the exact same spatium reverb algorithm in GFI's Specular Tempest, which is one of the best reverbs around, I believe, and it is widely renowned as such. So this is what that sounds like. Play around with the octaves of the oscillators. Oh, that's beautiful. live. That's really good. Another thing we can do, if we go to the 2-pole filter, it's going to be a bit brighter, obviously. It's a 12 dB filter rather than a 24. And the cool thing is we have modulation options for this state variable filter that we don't have for the others, and that is the fact that we can variable the state of the filter in the mod matrix. This is probably going to be a bit too crazy, but I'm going to take LFO2 as the source, and I'm going to go SV, that means state variable filter, that's the one we're on. Low pass notch, high pass, that's going to sweep through this knob for us. So let's just see what happens. This might be a little bit loud because we're going to have some high passing going on. Now let's say I only want this to come in every once in a while, and this is where it gets really crazy in here. We can modulate this mod slot with something else. So I'm going to set this attenuation to 0, the amount to 0, and then I'm going to have, let's say LFO1 be our source. I'm going to give that some amount, and the destination is going to be the mod slot above it. So destination, I'm going to go all the way to mod 18 amount. And now, even though this is set to 0 in mod slot 18, it's going to be affected and kind of turned on and off by mod 19, which is the LFO1. Hear that? So every once in a while, we have this crazy random sample and hold, which is being modulated by LFO3, being modulated by LFO1 through the mod matrix, which is modulating the amount of LFO. Yeah, it gets a little crazy, but it makes sense why you're doing it, right? Oh, that's great. And that reverb is incredible. Now, what if you wanted just a tiny bit of distortion coming in every once in a while? We could do it with our hand. But we don't have to do it with our hand because we have all of these modulators and like 12 mod slots that are still free. So let's take envelope 2, amount to distortion, ever so slightly. What if we wanted this octave adjustment stuff that I'm doing by hand to be modulated? You guessed it. We can do that too. I'm going to do that with the sequencer lane, I believe. That's a good way to do that. So if I hold down 5 and then give it a destination, it's going to automatically assign. I can change the length of any of these sequence lanes independently, as we mentioned, by pressing the last button and reset. So now, find all these sweet spots that are just evolving. I want to bring in the noise, but not the funk. Destination. Let's take envelope 1, the destination. Have that affect the noise. A little bit of noise, just gradually coming and going. Without the reverb, still really good. It would sound great through any reverb, but this reverb is really spectacular. Yeah, I could let that run literally all day and just sit here in front of it, but I don't think you're going to watch all that, so let's see. We got to name it something. Why don't we call it... You know, I didn't even get into the whole patch morphing thing that you can now do on the Pro 3, because I don't really know how that would work out if I have a patch morph and you don't have the other patch, but I'm going to give this patch to you for free. That way you can kind of break down, go into the mod matrix yourself and see what we did together today, and you can make adjustments to it to your taste. Right? Yeah, so that'll be the first link in the description. You can have this patch for free. Please sign up for the newsletter there. I send stuff out all the time, free samples, sample packs and stuff like that. So you probably want to be subscribed to that. If you got anything out of the video today, I would appreciate a thumbs up. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithms, which we all know constantly have to be fed, or they become very angry with us. If you want to see more stuff like this with the Pro 3, other synthesizers, music production, tape loops, ambient stuff, anything regarding music, I guess, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. That would help me out tremendously. I'm really focusing on the channel this year and from now on, just like forever. Even if YouTube stops existing, I'm going to continue to make videos and just upload them into the void. Now, if you want to see the other 3 patches that I mentioned in the beginning of this video that are very similar in style and make up to this one, you can click the video here, and I'm just going to let this take us out. So